Welcome back, my students, to another episode of Comic Class. And in today's lesson, guys, we're going to be looking at Rick Remender's Deadly Class Volume 1, Reagan Youth. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into this lesson. Let's go. So the story pretty much starts off with the character called Marcus Lopez. And yeah, Marcus is basically a kid that's living on the street. We get to learn exactly what it's like from his day-to-day life. And we get to see his interactions with the people of the city. I believe it's San Francisco where the story takes place. And yeah. So we get to see, like I said, his interactions with the people. And after this, we get to see that his entire backstory and exactly what happened to him as a kid. Basically, we get to see that Marcus as a kid was out, I believe it was at the park or just, walking down the city. And this lady that was committing suicide basically fell on top of both of his parents and basically killed them on impact. See that, the day-to-day struggles that Marcus has been dealing with eventually leads Marcus to want to commit suicide because it's gotten that bad. Before he can go through with it, he does, talk about how he doesn't really believe in God, but at the same time that he's a hypocrite because he prays every night, basically showing that Marcus as a character is very complex. He has a lot of layers to his character. He's human just like us, and he does doubt himself and doubt what he believes in, or in a sense doesn't know what to believe in. And this is where Saya basically comes into the story, which may be a major character in the story, and basically gets Marcus not to jump. Now, Marcus gets into a type of situation where he's in this group of people, and these police officers are basically chasing him down. So we're introduced to characters like Maria and Willie, which are, again, main characters that we'll be seeing a lot of. Eventually, Marcus makes his way down to some type of alleyway, and this is where Saya basically picks him up and tries to get him away from the cops. Now, what we get to see during all of this is the capabilities of these kids, and this will all be explained in a bit. But we get to see Saya basically show that she's very good at martial arts and using weapons, and basically gets the cops to actually crash into some type of pole, getting them off of Marcus's trail. But Marcus is very unlucky because one of the cops basically is able to catch up to him, shoots him, I believe, in the leg, and is about to execute Marcus without a trial, basically saying no one's going to warn him and that he doesn't get a trial, he just gets a bullet in the head. And this is where Saya basically stabs the dude with her signature katana, basically killing the dude. And yeah, she's pretty shocked that she just killed a cop. Basically, that's just something that is really bad to do, even for these kids. And yeah, they basically get away. Now this is where Marcus basically tied up by some of the kids that he's met up with, and basically is introduced to a character called Master Lin. And Master Lin basically tells Marcus about a school of assassins that he actually runs, that he wants Marcus to join the crew, basically join the school in learning how to hone the deadly arts. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now Marcus, at first declines this and has talks with Saya about what exactly made her go into this school. And eventually they come to the realization that Marcus might be able to find something in the school that he can't find out in the world, basically have friends and learn, the arts, basically to deliver his plan, which is basically to kill the president of Ronald Reagan, which is the story takes place in the 1980s, I believe. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. So Master Lin basically introduces Marcus to the school called King's Dominion, and that's pretty much our introduction to this entire story. Now, after all that, we get to see that we get a little glimpse into Marcus's past real quick, basically showing him and this other boy basically sharing a room. And yeah, Marcus working on some type of device, which will be explained way later on in the story. I believe it's not until volume 2 or 3 where we learn what exactly the scene means, but yeah. So after that, we get to see that Marcus basically gets his outfit and he goes into King's Dominion, and we get to see that Marcus has interactions with different groups, which is really cool to see. And yeah, we get to see people basically, I believe her name's Brandy. Basically, this white girl that basically treats Marcus very badly due to him being, I believe, Mexican, or he says what he is basically. But he's, in that type of nationality, like a branch of it. And basically, she's very racist towards him and kind of sets the standard for what this school actually is like, with the cliques and different groups kind of keeping to themselves. Now, Maria basically is dating a guy called Chico, and they're part of the cartel, the Mexican cartel, which are very dangerous individuals. Chico does not like Marcus, which is not a good thing. But Marcus isn't the type to kind of like just take anything from anybody. So it's really cool to see him stand up for himself most of the time, and we get introduced to Maria some more, which is again a very important character to the Deadly Class series. So yeah, that's cool. We get to see a little bit of her relationship with Chico and Marcus. Basically, her interactions with both. You get to see Marcus actually interacting in his classes, learning more of the deadly arts, having stuff like chemistry, how to kill people basically with weapons, martial arts training. Really cool stuff. One of the things I really appreciated was seeing these characters kind of like on their downtime and just being kids. I thought that was pretty cool to see, just them interacting. It makes them actually feel like friends. I think that's one thing that Rick Remender does a very good job on, is having these little, breather moments. So Marcus basically is taking a shower when he hears that some type of commotion is happening in kind of like the room next door. And he basically gets his first interaction with a character called Victor and Shabnam, I believe is his name, which is the guy with the glasses. And yeah, he basically calls out this dude, this bully called Victor, which is like this Russian super powerhouse type guy. And they have their interaction, basically them staring each other down and stuff like that. And it's really good stuff. Victor is a very good character. He's definitely a character I want to make a video just talking about his progression in the series, because he's a very good antagonist type of force in the series. And yeah, him and Marcus's relationship gets really developed throughout the entire series. But yeah, we'll jump into that when we get to that. So Shabnam basically talks to Marcus and tells him and thanks him basically for standing up for him. Marcus gets handed by this hooded figure some type of skeleton lizard, and this is very important for a future story arc, so just keep that in mind. This is a very important thing that was handed to Marcus and will be explained later on. But yeah, we get introduced to all the different clips by Shabnam, and Shabnam basically explains all the different people, such as the Mexican cartel, the Hood. You have like I believe it's like the Kurosaki or Kuroki Syndicate, which is cool. The Ditzy Mob, which is the one ran by Brandy, I believe is her name. And there's just multiple clips, and it's cool to see how each one kind of like takes care of themselves. No one kind of bats down from a fight, so you have to really be tough. And Marcus isn't part of any group, and that's what makes it really interesting with this character. He doesn't really belong to anybody, so he's really out of his element here, and he really has to stand up for himself and not show any weakness. And yeah, so Masterland basically gives them an assignment to do, and this is where we get our first interactions between characters and figuring out who really works with who. And Willie basically says that he'll take Marcus under his wing and be his partner for this assignment. So this is where we're going to get introduced to the first type of antagonist, or at least, the first antagonist of the series is Chico. But the second antagonist is a guy called, I believe his name's like F-Face or something. So this police officer basically walks in on this dude, and this is where we're introduced to, F-Face, where he basically is the guy that we saw that was with Marcus in that flashback. So they have some history together, which is really cool. Now, after all that, when we get that introduction to that character, we get to see that Willie and Marcus are basically having fun on this assignment, and we really get to see them bond as two people, basically saving each other and just having fun getting this assignment done. And they get to talk about their backstories, where they come from. We get to learn about Willie basically talking about how his father died. Some pretty sad stuff. And yeah, so eventually Marcus and Willie basically take on this dude that actually stole Marcus's shoes, I believe, in the first issue of the series. And yeah, they basically fight him, and eventually Willie has the chance to take him out, and he doesn't take it. So this is our little hint of Willie's struggle as a character. And Marcus even claims, he says, like, you let him get away. This is where you get to find out that Willie actually was not who he said he was, and that he helped his father kill some thugs or gang people or something. But instead, they actually killed his father in front of him or something like that. And it was basically his uncle that came in and actually took out the bad guys, basically the thugs and the gang people. So Willie never really had it in him to kill somebody. So this is kind of like his struggle as a character. And we get to see that F-Face basically is looking at Willie and Marcus and decides not to make his appearance known yet, which is really cool. And he'll definitely come back later on in this volume. So Willie and Marcus basically go to where the homeless people are, because Marcus actually had a lot of experience with these people, and basically is sitting down eating when he hears one of the guys, the guy that they're sitting with, basically talk about doing stuff to like little boys or something like that. And this kind of like makes Marcus have a flashback, and he comes back to the dude with some type of like a lead pipe or something, and he legit like kills the dude. And Willie is shocked to see that Marcus would kill somebody like this, but Willie doesn't know Marcus's entire backstory and why exactly he kind of freaked out. And we'll learn more about what happens to Marcus in a future volume. But yeah, Marcus definitely has reasons to have these emotions. I'll just say it like that. He had a pretty messed up childhood. But yeah, so Willie basically is surprised, and we jump into Masterland basically failing, the Willie and Marcus for killing an innocent man. And of course Marcus tries to play it off as, the dude had it coming. But that's just not gonna help, his case, and they don't succeed in the mission. So now we go into the final portion of the story, which takes place with the gang, pretty much all the main characters that we've found and learned about throughout the volume, and they're basically going on a road trip to go kill Billy's dad. Now, Billy is a pretty interesting character because he's kind of like the comedy relief. Him and Willie are pretty funny characters, but Billy has to be the one that's always cracking the jokes most of the time. So while they're on this like wild, car ride, basically just enjoying each other's company. Another thing, like I said, that's very good about Rick Remender is that he has these breather moments. We get little hints as well with Chico actually following the group, and that he has a gun with him, basically with the objective of killing Marcus on this trip. But not only that, but we get to see a dude wearing a motorcycle helmet. Pretty sure you can guess who that is, but yeah. So the day after, 1 hour later, we get to see that the sun's up, basically, and we get to see that Marcus actually took some type of acid / LSD, I believe. And yeah, Saya basically gets onto him for doing that, and Maria kind of like enjoys, what Marcus has done. And we get to see at 35 or 36 minutes later that Marcus basically starts tripping out. And we get to see Marcus basically just having all these different like hallucinations and basically just kind of like losing his mind, which is really funny to see. We even get to see a little like Ronald Reagan type comic panel, which is really funny, him in comic form. So basically Marcus is with Maria, and we get to see that Chico is basically getting ready to go in to murk the dude. And F-Face reveals that he's actually the dude that is underneath the motorcycle helmet. Now Marcus is in basically his room, still tripping out, when he hears the door knocking, and he eventually goes and tries to find where the knocking is happening, and Billy is trying to kill his dad, basically telling Marcus to help him out. This is where Marcus, lands a hit on Billy's dad and basically kills him for Billy. And Billy, kind of just states, why couldn't his dad love him, which is really sad. But like he said, his dad was pretty bad. He's a pretty bad dude. You have to remember, they were all sent to the assassin school by their parents or, people that are in charge of them. So yeah, for sure his parents were really bad people. So after that, we just see that Marcus basically is being patrolled by these two guys, and eventually he is led, to, I guess, his room or something, and he opens his door and he sees that Maria is there waiting for him, so they start, kissing and making out. And it looks like they're about to, go further than that when Chico arrives and basically starts shooting at Marcus, basically trying to kill him. And this is where Maria basically tries to stop Chico from killing Marcus, and Marcus kind of makes an escape, and Chico and Maria basically get into a sort of fight, and eventually Chico makes his way and tackles Marcus through some type of convenience store. Now, Marcus and Chico basically have a battle between themselves, and Chico is just a more experienced fighter, being someone that is part of the cartel. It makes a lot of sense that he'd be very good at using guns and, doing his hand-to-hand combat. But then we get to see that the police officers basically arrive, and they basically try to stop Chico, and Chico kind of lets out loose on his gunfire and basically kills all the police officers, and even kills the person running the cash register at the convenience store, which is so messed up. She was completely innocent, but it shows the type of person Chico actually is. So Marcus tries to get away, and eventually Chico is attacking Marcus like crazy. Whenever Maria shows up, he basically takes her on as well, and Willie basically tells him that he needs to stop or he's gonna legit kill him. And this is where Willie basically says, to do it, that he knows that, Willie won't do it because he has a problem with killing people. He's never had it in him to actually pull the trigger. So they're, this is Rick Remender basically bringing up what happened earlier with Marcus and Willie, and going into his backstory and making it relevant to the current plot, which I thought was fantastic. This is the climax of the first volume, and it's fantastic. That's bringing up other stuff that was built up to this. So Saya even says to just shoot him, but Willie just cannot bring himself to do it. So Maria takes into her own hands and basically slashes Chico's throat with her fans. And it's kind of similar to Katana from Mortal Kombat. That's very similar to the weapon that she uses. But so Maria basically uses a weapon that works that way, and she basically kills Chico. And it's pretty sad that his end had to be like this, but he would not stop, and was definitely going to kill Marcus, and probably would have killed the other people as well, and just not stop. And Maria's basically distraught after doing this. I mean, she legit just killed somebody. And she never wanted to kill Chico, She didn't love him, but I doubt she wanted to kill him and take his life. And this will definitely come back to bite Maria bad in the future, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So Maria basically saves Marcus, and this is where F-Face makes his appearance to Marcus. He reveals himself to Marcus and then his friends. And this is where, Marcus is just freaking out because this dude has a lot of history with him. And basically F-Face lets them go and basically says that he doesn't want to kill Marcus in this state. He wants him to have a fair chance and to kind of prove himself. He wants it to feel good when he kills, Marcus. He wants it to feel earned. So F-Face has a lot going for him. As an antagonist, we're going to learn more about him in Volume 2. And that's pretty much it for F-Face. He basically leaves them in that alleyway to, go their own ways. Basically saying he'll see him in the future. Now we get to see what they all just went through is not only, crazy because they killed one of their own classmates, but they're having this threat of this dude that none of them know except Marcus. And the volume ends with the crew just basically riding into the distance, heading back to King's Dominion to start the next story. And that's pretty much how Volume 1 Reagan Youth ends. It's amazing story, guys. Deadly Class is a great series, and I'm glad that I'm going to be covering it for the next few days / week, I believe, because I do want to get caught up so that y'all can look at, I believe it's issue 48 that we're on. That's coming out on the 28th this month. This is probably my favorite series going on right now. Deadly Class, since I read it 2 years ago, has been such a favorite of mine. And I believe the writing of Rick Remender and the art from Wes Craig, I believe is the artist, is a fantastic combination and possibly my favorite in all the comic books. It's just an amazing series. I can't wait to jump to volume 2 for y'all. But until the next video, guys, God bless you. Until the next lesson, keep on reading those comments.
I am who I'm meant to be. I am who I'm meant to be. Over and out again. My future needed clarity, so I could see how you